Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for this invitation to come and speak with all of you, all the dignitaries on the dais, and all my friends in front of me. Thank you once again for the invite. We live in times when there is a serious, very significant question mark on press freedom. And it seems as if it is merely an idea more than a reality, because in reality we don't see it. What is even more dangerous in present times is the freedom of the press seems to have been surrendered by large amounts of what we today call the corporate or Godi media. Slavery, when imposed, is not as intimidating as slavery when accepted. When voluntarily you consider yourself to be a slave, it's very difficult to liberate you. When somebody imposes slavery on you, there is an automatic reaction to it to seek freedom. Unfortunately, today with the media we see a voluntary form of slavery. And that is the more anxiety-causing situation, because that makes liberating that media even more difficult for us. I'm not making a generalized statement because there are still some signs of hope. There are some individuals, some independent media organizations that are resisting this tendency. But by and large, we see this tendency. If you look at the period of the last 10 years, we find a very severe lack of the media interrogating the government, questioning them seriously, pursuing topics, and forcing them to get answers, give answers. The government has been placed in a very comfortable zone that they don't require to answer anything because nobody is going to question them. The government also, and particularly the Prime Minister, has adopted this attitude of not allowing any questioning to happen. The only question in the last 10 years that he has allowed to be asked is how he eats his mangoes, and that too by a non-journalist. And so this is the very significant aspect of what we see today. I know the topic is about Gandhian ideals and things, but see, Gandhi did what he had to do in his lifetime, achieved what he set out to achieve in his lifetime. It was very significant for then, it is very significant for today. But today we need to find solutions to the situation that we face currently. The only thing that Gandhi can provide is inspiration to find a solution to the situation that we face. But the solution has to be found by our own ability to do so, our own will to do so, our own necessity to do so. Unless we do that, no amount of inspiration is going to help us. And today, unfortunately, the larger segment of media has become more like an entertainment industry, and the electronic media especially. If you look at the evening debates on the so-called news channels on TV, they do nothing to address the issue. They do nothing to enlighten their viewers. All they are doing is entertaining the viewers, because till now it was only the decibels of the voices of the participants in the so-called debates and the ability of the anchor to outshout all the other participants. Now we see violence on screen, we see participants coming to blows, we see mics being thrown. The same thing that we've been seeing in our parliaments and assemblies is now happening in TV studios. And it is happening because the producers of those shows have realized that the audience wants entertainment because there is no content that is being offered. There is no intellectual stimulant that is being offered. So the only way that they can get viewership is to address the baser elements of human nature, which want to see violence, which want to see farces being enacted in the under the pretext of intellectual debate. This is the sad symptom of our society because, we can't just keep blaming the media for everything. They are also providing what society is lapping up. I'll give you examples of how our society, the ethicality of our society has degenerated. 2 months back, there was an incident reported from Indore, where a woman was raped on a busy intersection in broad daylight. And people, instead of going to her rescue or trying to stop the rapist, stood around taking videos of that happening over there. That is a fatal sickness that is afflicting our society. 2 days back in Mumbai, in a busy locality, a traffic incident escalated into mob lynching where the driver of the car was brutally assaulted and killed in front of his family. And again, people were standing around taking videos of the whole situation. Nobody bothered to intervene and stop that. In the Jaipur train that was coming to Mumbai, a policeman went berserk, singling out Muslims and murdering them on the train. And even over there, the other passengers were filming him in action. I know that it is scary when somebody is carrying a weapon and firing at people to intervene. But he was one policeman and there were hundreds of travelers in that bogie. They could have collectively assaulted him, prevented him from taking action. But what did the media show? There was no debate about how alarmingly our society has become sort of anesthetized to the brutality that is being displayed in our country. What they were showing was whether he was a patriot or whether he was an insane killer. That was not the important aspect. This is where we need to realize and take inspiration from Bapu. All his life, throughout his career, he utilized the media. He realized the power of the media, at that time the print media. And throughout, in every phase of his life, he started publications because he knew that to reach the people, make them aware of the cause that he was embracing and championing, he had to explain the things to his people. And so in South Africa, he started the Indian Opinion. And it covered all the languages that his audience read and spoke. Back in India, he started with a publication called Navjivan, which then turned to Young India, and finally came out as Harijan. Throughout the freedom struggle, these periodicals took the message that Bapu wanted to convey to the people of India and explained the entire process of the freedom movement from time to time, every phase of the freedom movement. Indian Opinion is very close to my heart because my grandfather, Bapu's second son, Manilal Gandhi, was sent back to South Africa after Bapu came to India in 1915. He after a couple of years, he sent my grandfather back to South Africa and told him to publish and edit the Indian Opinion. And till his death in 1955, my grandfather brought out the Indian Opinion regularly without missing any issues of it. And after his death for 5 years, my grandmother continued the same tradition till it became almost impossible for her to run the paper on her own. My father, as a young boy, also worked in the production and distribution of Indian Opinion. So Indian Opinion is very close to my mind. At one point of time, my grandfather realized that running Indian Opinion merely on subscriptions was not sustainable. It wasn't enough. It wasn't earning enough to sustain itself. And so he wrote to his father and requested that he be permitted to accept advertisement in Indian Opinion. And he said that advertisement only enough to cover the production cost of the paper, not for profit. So we will only sell a limited amount of advertisement space without compromising the editorial content of the paper. Bapu wrote back to him and said, I would rather that you stopped publishing Indian Opinion than accept even a single ad to earn any money. And he justified it. He said, as soon as you start accepting advertisements, you will be beholden to the advertiser. And slowly the advertiser will start influencing the editorial content by saying that, I'm paying for the advertisement, and if you write such things, then though people don't see your publication, and so my advertisement money goes waste. So why don't you write on these issues and not on these issues and things? So he said, if you can't sustain the paper without advertisement, close it down, but don't corrupt it by accepting advertisement. It's a very radical thing, because in today's world, when everything is a commercial, has a commercial aspect, to expect something to be completely free of the commercial angle is not a very practical thing. But think of it today. Look at especially the print media today. From the time of, say, around this time, October, till January, you notice the ratio of advertisement to editorial in the leading publications. And except for a couple, you will notice that the national press completely surrenders itself to advertisements. You hardly get any reading material. These days, at least in a city like Bombay, in the morning when I pick up my newspaper, I don't see a single news item till I turn 5 pages. And the first page of editorial almost starts on the 5th page of that publication. What that does is reduces the significance of the lead story, the lead headline and things, because by the time you reach that place, you're fed up and you're just turning pages to see if you can find something to read. And even there, after the editorial starts, more than half the page of a newspaper is taken up by advertisements, because the publisher knows that that is the time when he can make the money, most of the money. Then that is a censorship that we don't realize, that is imposed by the commercial necessities of the publication. We only see censorship as in when the government or the officials step in and do not allow certain edit material to be published. But we don't see the censorship of the commercial greed of publications. This is what we must also be aware of, When advertisement department starts dictating editorial policy and editorial strategy, that means that there is in-house censorship happening in that publication. But because there is a commercial justification for it, we also turn a blind eye towards it. But all these very subtle ways of censoring journalistic freedom are hampering the activist role that journalism needs to play. You're all students of journalism, you're all students of media, so you're looking at a career in the field of media and journalism. Most of you will be wanting to get into electronic media because that is the happening space. Artificial intelligence is going to be a big threat to all of you for your jobs, because more and more editorial is going to be assigned to the artificial intelligence applications, which will produce copy in a more prolific manner than you can ever do so in your entire career span. And so that will be one threat. That will be a threat again to press freedom, because artificial intelligence will only provide according to the guidelines given to it. It's not going to use its own ability to reason, to decide what is more important than that. And for all of you, you will have to counter this technological censorship that will be imposed very soon. It is taking rapid strides towards the future. And so that is another aspect that all of you will have to deal with, which my generation has not had to bother at all. And you will have to find ways to overcome that, or make yourself indispensable to the organization in comparison to the artificial intelligence solutions that will be offered to them. News will be manipulated. Not that it is not manipulated today. Today we go through, we are living in an era in our country and most of the world where it's very difficult to realize which is honest reportage and which is manipulated news and reportage happening in this. Electoral news these days is completely manipulated. We don't know which exit poll to believe. We don't know which forecast to believe. We have come to a stage where we don't even trust the results as they are being declared. Because many a times we find out that those are manipulated also, right from the election commission to the editorial department. And so it becomes more and more difficult for career journalists to remain honest to their vocation. So please don't consider what you have chosen to be merely a career. It is also an activist crusade that you must look at it for, because you will have the unique ability to influence society, influence opinion, and influence minds so that they open up to the larger ideas, to the quest for truth, to the quest for knowledge. You will be like the shepherds and guides who will take them towards the destination from the right path. As Bapu said, the destination is important, but even more important is the journey, the path that you select to take it. And in today's times, taking the shortcut is being encouraged. But the shortcut doesn't really take you to the correct objective or destination, because you make a lot of compromises in taking that shortcut. And shortcuts in media are a sin. The best stories are the ones that are taken with care, with time, and with a lot of pondering going into it. Bapu advocated censorship, but he advocated censorship in the form of self-restraint. He said we must have the wisdom to realize what was good for society and not just pursue the sensational in personal glory. Today we see a lot of crusaders who behave in a very irresponsible manner in the way they report things, especially in the communally charged atmosphere that we live in today. You will see that in the guise of honest reportage, a lot of inflammatory stories are being published. I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but there is no necessity to be inflammatory. There is a difference between being informative and being inflammatory. And today it's become fashionable to become inflammatory and still claim that you are being truthful. This is also a very major concern that we see amongst the media today. And we must all be aware, and as future media people, you must be sensitized to this necessity for self-restraint, necessity for being discerning of what is essential to do in that particular time period, what will help in diffusing a potentially violent situation and what will enhance the violence of a situation. Remember, discerning between that and deciding responsibly between the two. These are all the things that Bapu practiced and indirectly suggested to people. It would be very nice for future media persons from time to time to refer to the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, because it is full of his editorial writings. His correspondence is there, but his editorial writings are also produced over here. Most of his publications and his editorials in those publications are reproduced in the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi. And it will help you in formulating your career as a media person, whether it is print media or electronic media or digital media as it is today happening. Everywhere this will be of benefit, and all these points that I have talked about will become necessary in classifying you as a responsible media person or a self-glorifying media person, because today, at least in the electronic media, we see prima donnas who don't care about what its effect will be on society. They just want to be seen as superstars, and they play to the galleries. The role of a journalist is to swim against the trend and by example change that trend. The best journalists, the most revered journalists are those who have not bothered about what is popular, but have always stuck to what is essential, what is the truth, even when it is extremely bitter. Take inspiration from all that. I don't like to make big lectures and things, so I'm not going to bore you with that. I hope that what I've said today has struck resonance with you. And I would very much appreciate if you will question me, because as journalists, as media people, the best media person is the one who questions a lot. And so I expect a lot of questions from you, because when you stop asking questions, you're also encouraging the curbing of opinion, and in a form, censorship. So thank you very much for this invitation and allowing me to speak, and let's have a dialogue.